So today we'll continue. The last thing we saw was the word equation sodium hydroxide reacts with sulfuric acid to form sodium sulfate and water. Now we are going to see how to write this and make a proper balanced chemical equation. So the first thing we need to know is that the reactants here are sodium hydroxide and sulfuric acid. We know that sodium hydroxide is a base because it ends with a hydroxide, whereas sulfuric acid is an acid. And therefore, an acid and a base will always give you some kind of salt and water. So, we can predict the products here. Now, so first thing is we have to do the word equation. Then we have to transform it into chemical equation. So, we'll write the chemical forms or formulas of each. Sodium hydroxide is NaOH. Sulfuric acid is H2SO4. These are the reactants separated by a plus sign. We put an arrow and then you have sodium sulfate. Now to write the formula of sodium sulfate, we should know the valency of both sodium and sulfate. The valency of sodium, because the group 1 element is 1, and sulfate SO4, its valency is 2, minus 2. And therefore when you write the formula, you will get Na2SO4 because the 2 of the sulfate comes and crosses over. And water formula we all know. So this is the chemical equation. Then we go ahead to balance the equation. That's the next thing. So when we balance the equation, we have to make sure that the number of atoms of each element in the reactants is equal to the number of atoms of each kind of elements in the product side. So right in the beginning we start with sodium. Here if we find there's only one atom of sodium, whereas in the product there are two atoms of sodium. So in order to balance it, I can put a 2 in front of NaOH here. So now we've got everything over here doubled. 2 NAs, 2 O's and 2 hydrogens. So let's try and balance say the hydrogen or say the oxygen. Alright. Let's take hydrogen, because here we got hydrogen, 2 atoms here and 2 atoms here. So together we have 4 atoms. Over here it's only in one place, so it's easier to balance this first. So if I put a 2 here, hydrogen becomes 4 atoms and it's balanced. And eventually you'll check and see that even the oxygen is balanced. So 2 oxygens for sodium hydroxide, 4 oxygens for H2SO4, totally is 4 plus 2 is 6. And on the other side you got 4 atoms in sodium sulfate and 2 atoms in water. So together 6. So it's a balanced chemical reaction. So please note, after writing the balancing the equation, we write it in the complete form like this. So if you have understood this, on page 46 of your textbook there's question number 7 of this type to balance it. So please try to balance it on your own. At the end of the lesson, the answers to the question banks will be given. You can then check your answer. The next slide is use your brain power on page 35. So I'd like you to try this also by yourself first, okay? And then the answers will be given to you. You can check your answers from there because you need to try some things by yourself as well.